Ladies and gentlemen, in life we often hear the phrase, "follow your heart," and it sounds so right, so warm. It feels like a safe piece of advice we can hold on to, especially when we're in moments of uncertainty. But what if I told you that your heart can sometimes lie to you? It is driven by emotions, and while emotions are powerful, they are not always reliable. Our brain, however, is a different story. It's logical, it sees the bigger picture, and it helps us think things through when emotions cloud our judgment. Our heart may want to take a shortcut, but our brain can guide us on the path that leads to our long-term well-being. The brain is one of the most powerful organs in the human body, constantly working to process information, make decisions, and guide our actions. Unlike the heart, which is often influenced by fleeting emotions, the brain is rooted in logic and reason. It doesn't get carried away by momentary feelings or distractions. Instead, it takes a step back, analyzes the situation, and helps us understand the bigger picture. When we learn to trust our brain, we are better equipped to make decisions that are thoughtful, well-informed, and aligned with our long-term goals. One of the most remarkable aspects of the brain is its ability to process vast amounts of information in a split second. Every day, we are faced with countless decisions, both big and small. Should I take this job? Should I invest in this opportunity? Should I go on this trip? Each of these decisions involves complex factors that require analysis, and it is the brain that helps us weigh the pros and cons. When we rely on the brain, we allow ourselves the time and space to consider all of these variables. The brain helps us to break down the information into manageable pieces, identify the key factors, and predict the possible outcomes of each decision. The brain also has a unique ability to process patterns and draw connections. It doesn't just look at the individual components of a situation, it sees how those components fit together. This ability to think critically is essential for problem solving and decision making. For example, when faced with a challenge, the brain can recall past experiences, identify similarities, and apply lessons learned. It can also project future scenarios based on previous patterns. This foresight is what allows us to make more informed choices, as the brain can foresee potential consequences and help us avoid making the same mistakes over and over again. The heart, on the other hand, might drive us to act impulsively, but the brain encourages us to slow down, think critically, and approach the situation with a clear and focused mind. Another essential function of the brain is its ability to prioritize. In life, we are constantly juggling multiple tasks, demands, and responsibilities. The brain helps us navigate these complexities by allowing us to identify what is most important and prioritize accordingly. It helps us set long-term goals, create plans, and execute them efficiently. While emotions may pull us in different directions, the brain keeps us grounded and focused on what truly matters. It reminds us of our values, our purpose, and the steps we need to take to achieve our objectives. Without the brain's guidance, we might find ourselves overwhelmed, lost in a sea of distractions, or caught up in the chaos of the moment. Moreover, the brain has an incredible ability to adapt. It constantly processes new information, adjusts to changes in our environment, and rewires itself based on our experiences. This plasticity allows us to learn, grow, and develop throughout our lives. When we face challenges, the brain helps us to reframe our thinking, approach problems from different angles, and discover new solutions. This flexibility is crucial in a world that is constantly changing, and it is the brain that equips us with the tools to navigate these shifts. The heart might lead us to stick to what feels comfortable, but the brain encourages us to embrace change, step outside of our comfort zones, and explore new possibilities. The brain also plays a vital role in managing our emotions. While emotions come from the heart, the brain helps regulate them. When we feel anger, sadness, or anxiety, The brain processes these emotions and helps us respond in a more measured way. It doesn't suppress emotions, but it helps us gain control over them, allowing us to react thoughtfully rather than impulsively. By listening to the brain, we learn to acknowledge our emotions, understand their sources, and decide how best to express them. This emotional regulation is a key aspect of emotional intelligence, which is essential for building strong relationships and navigating social dynamics. The brain is our logical compass, guiding us through the complexities of life. It helps us make decisions based on reason and clarity, not just on what we feel in the moment. While emotions are important and valuable, it is the brain that provides us with the wisdom and foresight to make decisions that align with our long-term goals and values. By trusting our brain, we gain the ability to think critically, process information, and navigate the challenges of life with confidence and purpose. Emotions are often seen as the guiding force in our lives. We are told to listen to our hearts, to follow our feelings, and to trust that they will lead us to the right place. Emotions give us a sense of direction, a sense of purpose, and they can fuel our passions and dreams. But what if these emotions aren't always as reliable as we think they are? What if the feelings that seem to pull us in one direction are actually clouding our judgment? The truth is that emotions, while they are essential to our humanity, are not always the most trustworthy guide. Take love, for instance. We often hear the phrase, "follow your heart," when it comes to matters of the heart. We are told to chase after love and trust our feelings, no matter the circumstances. But love is an emotion, and emotions can sometimes blind us to the reality of a situation. How many times have we heard stories of people staying in toxic relationships because they followed their hearts instead of thinking through the situation logically? How many times have we seen someone make a rash decision in the name of love, only to regret it later? Emotions, especially love, can be intense, and they often drive us to act quickly without considering the long-term consequences. Now think about fear. Fear is another powerful emotion that can lead us to make poor decisions. When we are afraid, we are often too quick to avoid situations or opportunities that may benefit us in the long run. Fear makes us hesitate, makes us second-guess ourselves, and can lead us to retreat into our comfort zones. While fear can be useful in situations where we need to stay alert, it can also cause us to miss out on growth and new experiences. If we always listen to our fear, we would never take the risks that are often necessary to achieve success or make positive changes in our lives. Then there is anger. Anger is an emotion that can cloud our reasoning and make us react impulsively. When we are angry, we tend to say things we don't mean, make decisions we later regret, and act in ways that are not aligned with our true values. Anger often distorts our view of reality, making us focus on the problem instead of the solution. We may lash out, burn bridges, or shut down in the heat of the moment, only to find ourselves wishing we had taken a step back and thought things through before acting. These examples show how emotions, while powerful, can sometimes lead us astray. They can trick us into thinking we are making the right choice when, in reality, we are only responding to immediate feelings. This is why the brain, with its ability to think critically and logically, is such an important tool in decision-making. The brain has the capacity to sift through emotions, separate fact from feeling, and provide us with a clearer understanding of the situation at hand. It doesn't get swept away by the current emotional tide. Instead, it helps us see the full picture. When we rely on our brain, we are able to take a step back and evaluate the consequences of our actions. The brain encourages us to ask questions like, what is the long-term impact of this decision? Is this choice aligned with my goals and values? How will I feel about this choice in a week, a month, or a year? The brain doesn't act on impulse. It seeks understanding and clarity. It helps us analyze the situation from all angles and gives us the space to consider alternatives. By doing so, the brain helps us avoid making decisions based purely on fleeting emotions that may not serve us in the long run. Of course, this doesn't mean that emotions are bad or that we should ignore them altogether. Emotions are what make life rich and meaningful. They give us depth, they help us connect with others, and they motivate us to take action. But emotions need to be balanced with logic and reason. They need to be processed through the lens of our brain, which can help us see things more clearly. It is in this balance, this partnership between the heart and the brain, that we can make decisions that are both emotionally fulfilling and logically sound. The heart and the brain are both crucial to our decision-making process. The heart provides us with the passion and drive, while the brain gives us the wisdom and clarity. When we allow our brain to guide our decisions, we ensure that our actions are grounded, intentional, and aligned with our greater purpose. Emotions, as powerful as they are, often lead us to make impulsive decisions. When we feel overwhelmed by anger, excitement, fear, or any other strong emotion, our minds tend to focus solely on the immediate feeling, pushing aside the broader picture. This can cloud our judgment, and instead of making out decisions, we act in haste, driven by what we feel at that moment. The heart, in this case, becomes the loudest voice, drowning out the calm and logic that the brain can offer. Take, for example, the emotion of anger. When we are angry, our minds may become clouded by frustration, and instead of taking a moment to think, we may lash out. Anger can make us say things we do not mean, hurt others unintentionally, and regret our actions later. When we act out of anger, we are not giving ourselves the opportunity to think things through, to step back and assess the situation from a logical perspective. Anger is an emotion that demands an immediate response, but this immediate response often leads to consequences that we did not foresee. Once the storm of anger has passed, we can find ourselves in a place of regret, wondering why we didn't take the time to consider other ways of handling the situation. Similarly, fear is another emotion that can cause us to make impulsive decisions. Fear triggers a fight or flight response, and this response can often push us to avoid situations that might actually be beneficial in the long run. The brain, in its more rational state, can see potential for growth or opportunity even in uncomfortable situations, but fear causes us to run away, to play it safe, and to avoid change. While it is understandable to feel fear in certain situations, acting solely based on fear can prevent us from taking necessary risks. This avoidance of risks can hold us back from reaching our full potential or achieving our goals. When we allow fear to dictate our decisions, we may never take the steps needed to grow and evolve, staying in the comfort zone where everything feels safe but stagnant. On the other side of emotions, excitement often leads us to make impulsive decisions. When something excites us, we become so focused on the thrill and joy of the moment that we forget to consider the long-term implications. Excitement can drive us to jump into situations without fully evaluating the risks or consequences. This can lead to overspending, overcommitting, or rushing into things that we might later regret. The excitement of a new opportunity can blind us to the reality of what it requires, or the sacrifices it might entail. Like a child diving into a pool without testing the water, we often dive headfirst into opportunities without checking whether we are fully prepared to handle what lies ahead. While these emotions can guide us to act quickly, they often do not serve us in the long term. The impulsiveness they trigger may lead to decisions that feel right at the moment, but may not align with our bigger goals. The heart, driven by emotions, might want to take the easiest or quickest route to feeling good, but this does not always lead to the best outcome. When we act impulsively, We are not taking the time to gather the necessary information, to understand all perspectives, or to consider the full picture of what our decisions might entail. In short, we are not thinking critically, and our decisions become more about instant gratification rather than long-term fulfillment. This is where the brain comes in. The brain has the capacity to think logically, to assess a situation from all angles, and to make decisions based on reasoning rather than on temporary feelings. It has the ability to pause, to think, and to understand the potential consequences of every action. While emotions might urge us to act quickly, the brain gives us the space to take a step back and consider the best course of action. The brain also helps us manage these emotions, allowing us to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. It doesn't ignore our feelings, but it encourages us to process them, weigh them against reason, and make decisions that serve our long-term goals. When we allow the brain to take the lead in our decision-making process, we can make choices that are aligned with our values, that help us achieve our goals, and that take into account the full scope of the situation. Instead of being driven by fleeting emotions, we can take the time to evaluate the pros and cons, to think critically, and to ensure that our actions are in our best interest. In this way, the brain helps us avoid the pitfalls of impulsive decisions, allowing us to make choices that lead to lasting success, growth, and fulfillment. When we find ourselves in a decision-making situation, there's often a struggle between what feels right emotionally and what makes sense logically. Our heart tells us what we desire, what excites us, and what resonates with our passions, while our brain tries to take a more rational, detached approach to guide us in a logical direction. This duality of influence can be challenging, as our emotions often push us to act quickly without considering the consequences, whereas our brain urges us to slow down, analyze, and evaluate. However, it's essential to understand that while both the heart and the brain serve valuable roles in our decision-making process, it's not about choosing one over the other. It's about recognizing when each should take the lead. The heart is often linked with our immediate desires, those feelings that give us a sense of purpose, joy, or satisfaction in the moment. When we feel drawn towards something, whether it's a person, a goal, or a situation, it's often because our heart sees something that sparks excitement or fulfillment. However, the problem with heart-driven decisions is that they can sometimes lead us down a path of short-term satisfaction at the expense of long-term well-being. For example, we might feel compelled to make a quick purchase because something looks appealing in the moment, or because we feel it will bring immediate pleasure, without thinking about how it fits into our bigger financial goals or whether it's truly necessary. These are the kinds of impulsive decisions that are driven by emotions, and while they may offer temporary relief or joy, they can often lead to regret or consequences that we hadn't considered. On the other hand, the brain is wired for logic, for critical thinking, and for analysis. The brain doesn't act on impulse but rather assesses the facts, weighs the options, and considers the potential outcomes. When we use our brain to make decisions, we take a step back from the emotional pull and look at the situation from a more objective perspective. Our brain asks the tough questions: what are the potential risks? What are the rewards? How will this decision affect our future? When we rely on our brain, we can avoid rushing into situations that might feel right in the moment but lead to regret later. It helps us focus on long-term goals rather than momentary pleasure, and guides us toward decisions that align with our overall vision for our lives. But, in reality, the brain alone is not always enough. It is important to remember that decisions are not just about numbers, facts, and data. They are also about human experience and emotional connection. That's where the heart comes in. The heart brings our values, passions, and dreams into the equation. giving us the emotional connection we need to stay motivated and focused on what truly matters to us. If we only relied on our brains, we might make decisions that are practical but not fulfilling, leaving us feeling disconnected from what we truly want or value. A life driven solely by logic can become sterile, devoid of the emotional satisfaction that gives us a sense of purpose and happiness. Therefore, the balance between heart and brain is key. The brain helps us assess risks, plan for the future, and consider the bigger picture. It ensures that our decisions are sound, practical, and aligned with our values. But the heart ensures that we stay connected to our passions, that we don't lose sight of what we care about, and that we're not making decisions purely out of obligation or practicality. By allowing our brain to guide us in terms of logic and our heart to guide us in terms of passion and purpose, we can make decisions that feel right on both an emotional and a logical level. In situations that involve major decisions, such as career choices, relationships, or investments, the balance becomes even more important. These decisions are often the ones that carry the greatest emotional weight, and it's easy to get swept up in the excitement or fear of the moment. However, by pausing and allowing both the heart and the brain to guide us, we can avoid making hasty choices based purely on emotion or solely on logic. For instance, when it comes to a new job opportunity, the heart may be excited by the prospect of a new challenge, but the brain might caution us to evaluate the long-term benefits and potential drawbacks by considering both the emotional fulfillment we might get from the job and the practical implications on our career trajectory. We can make a more balanced, thoughtful decision. It's also important to recognize that both the heart and brain work together to help us manage our emotions. The brain processes and regulates our feelings, helping us respond to situations with clarity and emotional intelligence. When we face a difficult situation, such as a conflict with a colleague or loved one, the heart may urge us to act out of hurt or frustration, but the brain can help us control that impulse and respond in a way that is more measured and constructive. By giving both heart and brain their due influence, we become more capable of making decisions that are in line with who we are, what we value, and what we ultimately hope to achieve. The balance between heart and brain is not a simple formula, but rather a dynamic process that requires awareness and self-reflection. We must learn to listen to both the heart and the brain, to respect the guidance they offer, and to use them in tandem to make decisions that are both emotionally fulfilling and logically sound. Trusting the brain is essential because it provides us with a foundation of logical reasoning that helps us make decisions grounded in reality. The brain does not operate based on fleeting emotions, but rather looks at the facts, weighs the potential risks and benefits, and considers the long-term consequences of each decision. While emotions can be incredibly powerful and often urge us to act in the heat of the moment, the brain offers the necessary balance by helping us take a step back, analyze, and make more informed choices. The brain encourages us to approach situations with a clear mind, where we can consider all variables and avoid rushing into decisions driven solely by temporary feelings. When we rely on our brain, we create a space for thoughtful reflection. Our brains help us process information, understand patterns, and make sense of the world around us. It allows us to break down complex situations, analyze data, and evaluate the pros and cons. This logical framework helps us navigate the chaos of daily life, where emotions can often cloud our judgment. For instance, when faced with an important career decision, our emotions might urge us to follow a passion or a gut feeling. However, it is our brain that will guide us to carefully assess the financial benefits, long-term career prospects, and personal alignment with our values before making a decision. In these situations, the brain becomes our guiding compass, ensuring that we make well-rounded, realistic choices that serve our long-term interests. Additionally, the brain's ability to anticipate outcomes is a crucial factor in decision making. It allows us to foresee potential consequences, both positive and negative, and to plan accordingly. When we trust our brain, we can evaluate the future impact of our actions and make adjustments to ensure that we are heading in the right direction. For example, when making a significant investment, the brain helps us calculate the potential return on investment, assess the risks involved, and create a strategy to minimize those risks. The emotional urge to take a risk for a quick reward may be tempting, but the brain helps us create a calculated plan that safeguards our financial well-being. The brain allows us to assess not only the immediate effects of our choices, but also the long-term ramifications, ensuring that we are not blinded by short-term emotions. Trusting the brain also leads to greater consistency and stability in decision making. While emotions can vary from moment to moment, the brain's logical processes remain steady and reliable. Emotions can fluctuate based on external circumstances, mood, or immediate feelings, but the brain provides a consistent approach to decision making. It allows us to stay grounded, even when external factors attempt to sway us. For instance, during periods of uncertainty or stress, emotions may lead us to feel anxious or indecisive. In such moments, trusting the brain helps us focus on what we can control, leading to decisions based on reason rather than fear or panic. The brain ensures that we make choices that reflect our true goals and aspirations, even when emotions threaten to derail our focus. Moreover, the brain helps us avoid impulsive decisions. It provides us with the necessary pause between stimulus and response, encouraging us to consider the bigger picture before taking action. This reflective process allows us to make more thoughtful, deliberate choices that are not based on immediate gratification, but on long-term benefits. For example, when faced with a stressful situation, the brain helps us regulate our emotions and think through the best course of action rather than reacting impulsively. This level-headed approach ensures that we do not act out of anger, fear, or excitement, but instead make decisions that are measured, rational, and aligned with our best interests. The brain's ability to assess risk and reward is also invaluable when it comes to decision making. By carefully weighing the benefits and drawbacks of each option, the brain helps us make choices that are more likely to yield positive results. It helps us avoid unnecessary risks and encourages us to take calculated chances that align with our personal goals. While emotions can push us to take risks based on gut feelings, the brain encourages us to gather information, assess the situation, and make well-informed decisions. Trusting the brain in this way ensures that we are not swayed by fear or overconfidence, but are instead guided by a realistic understanding of the risks involved. In relationships, trusting the brain helps us avoid acting on emotional impulses that may not reflect our true desires. Emotions often lead us to act impulsively in relationships, saying things in anger or making decisions in the heat of passion. However, the brain encourages us to take a step back and think through our actions. It helps us communicate more effectively, understand different perspectives, and make choices that foster healthy and lasting connections. By trusting the brain, we ensure that our decisions are not clouded by momentary feelings, but are instead rooted in understanding, respect, and clarity. Trusting the brain is essential because it offers us the tools we need to make decisions that are thoughtful, informed, and aligned with our long-term goals. The brain provides a steady, logical approach to life's challenges, helping us navigate complex situations with clarity and purpose. While emotions play a crucial role in shaping our experiences and guiding us toward our passions, it is the brain that ensures we make decisions that are grounded in reality and serve our best interests. By trusting the brain, we empower ourselves to make decisions that lead to fulfillment, success, and personal growth. Emotions are an integral part of the human experience. They shape our actions, influence our decisions, and connect us to others in meaningful ways. However, emotions can also be unpredictable and unreliable, which is why they need to be managed carefully. The brain plays a crucial role in this process, helping us regulate our feelings and guiding us to respond in ways that are constructive and thoughtful. When we learn to manage our emotions, we gain better control over our actions, relationships, and overall well-being. One of the primary ways the brain helps us manage our emotions is through self-awareness. By becoming more aware of our emotional state, we can better understand the reasons behind our feelings and how they influence our decisions. Self-awareness allows us to recognize when we are acting out of anger, fear, or excitement, and it gives us the opportunity to pause and reflect before reacting. When we are emotionally triggered, our initial response may be to act impulsively, but the brain encourages us to take a step back and assess whether that reaction is truly serving us. Through self-awareness, the brain helps us recognize patterns in our emotional responses, giving us the tools to better manage how we react to situations. In addition to self-awareness, the brain also helps regulate emotions by promoting emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions as well as the emotions of others. By cultivating emotional intelligence, we become more adept at navigating complex social situations, building stronger relationships, and responding to emotions in healthy ways. For example, when we find ourselves in a heated argument, the brain helps us stay calm and composed, enabling us to listen to the other person's perspective and respond with empathy rather than anger. Emotional intelligence also helps us regulate our internal emotions, allowing us to stay grounded even in stressful situations. The brain's ability to regulate emotions is particularly important in situations where emotions might cloud our judgment. For instance, when we face difficult decisions, such as making a career change or ending a relationship, our emotions can sometimes overwhelm our ability to think clearly. In these moments, the brain helps us process our feelings, separate them from the facts, and make decisions that are in alignment with our long-term goals and values. Emotions like fear, excitement, or sadness can drive us to act impulsively, but the brain provides the clarity we need to slow down, reflect, and make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. Furthermore, the brain helps us manage emotions by encouraging positive coping mechanisms. When we experience stress, anxiety, or frustration, the brain helps us find healthy ways to cope, such as through relaxation techniques, mindfulness, or physical activity. These coping mechanisms provide us with an outlet for our emotions, allowing us to release built-up tension and process our feelings in a constructive manner. By relying on these coping strategies, we can avoid turning to unhealthy habits such as emotional eating, substance abuse, or lashing out at others. The brain not only helps us recognize when we are feeling overwhelmed, but it also helps us choose healthier ways to deal with those emotions. The brain's role in managing emotions also extends to how we perceive and interpret situations. Our emotional responses are often influenced by the way we interpret events and interactions. For example, if someone cuts us off in traffic, our initial emotional reaction may be anger. However, the brain can help us reframe the situation by reminding us that the person may be in a hurry or not intending to be rude. By shifting our perspective, we can regulate our emotional response and avoid unnecessary stress. This ability to reinterpret situations and control our emotional responses is a key aspect of emotional regulation. Moreover, the brain helps us regulate our emotions by fostering resilience. Life is full of challenges, setbacks, and unexpected events that can trigger strong emotional reactions. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, and the brain plays a vital role in developing this strength. It helps us adapt to difficult situations, maintain a positive outlook, and keep moving forward despite setbacks. When we trust the brain to regulate our emotions, we are better equipped to handle life's challenges with grace and resilience. In relationships, emotional regulation is crucial. Emotions are often at the core of misunderstandings, conflicts, and miscommunications. The brain's ability to regulate emotions helps us navigate these situations by allowing us to respond with empathy, patience, and understanding. For example, in a disagreement with a partner or friend, the brain can help us manage our emotions, communicate effectively, and find a resolution that respects both parties' feelings. By regulating our emotions, we can prevent conflicts from escalating and build stronger, healthier relationships. Ultimately, managing emotions with the help of the brain is an essential skill for leading a balanced, fulfilling life. Emotions will always be a part of who we are, but when we learn to regulate them effectively, we gain the ability to respond to situations in a calm, thoughtful manner. The brain helps us recognize, understand, and control our emotions, guiding us toward healthier decisions, more meaningful relationships, and greater emotional well-being. It ensures that our emotions serve us rather than control us, allowing us to live in a way that is true to ourselves and aligned with our goals. When we talk about making decisions, it's important to understand that the heart and brain are not separate forces that should work against each other. Instead, they should work in harmony, each playing a unique role in the process. The heart offers us passion, intuition, and emotion, while the brain provides us with logic, clarity, and reasoning. However, the true power lies in finding the right balance between the two. Emotions and logic are both crucial, but when we combine them in a balanced way, we can make decisions that feel both right and reasonable. It's not about ignoring one or the other. It's about using both to create a complete understanding of the situation. In many situations, the heart leads us toward what feels good in the moment, while the brain helps us step back and assess whether that feeling aligns with our long-term well-being. There's a reason we say, don't make decisions in the heat of the moment, or take a step back before reacting. Emotions tend to be transient, and while they are often powerful and important, they don't always tell the full story. For instance, when we feel excited, we might rush into something without considering the long-term implications. Similarly, fear might cause us to hesitate and miss opportunities. When we take a step back and allow the brain to take the lead, we can assess the situation logically and avoid being swayed purely by momentary feelings. Think of it this way: your heart wants you to take a leap of faith, to follow your gut and trust your instincts. It's the feeling that pushes you toward taking risks and making bold moves. On the other hand, your brain is the voice of reason, reminding you to ask questions like, what's the worst that could happen? Or how does this fit into the bigger picture of my goals and values? The heart urges us to act quickly, while the brain helps us slow down, ensuring that we make decisions that will serve us well in the future. The brain helps us calculate risks, weigh options, and anticipate outcomes. While your heart might feel strongly about a decision, your brain can guide you through the process of making that decision in a way that's informed and thoughtful. When we listen to both our heart and our brain, we can make decisions that feel authentic while also being grounded in reality. The heart tells us what we want, what we desire, and what moves us. It helps us recognize our true passions and values. The brain, however, makes sure those passions are directed towards something that makes sense and is sustainable. It's the brain that asks whether the decision aligns with our bigger vision, whether it's practical, and whether it will help us grow. By using both heart and brain, we can create a clear vision of what we want and then ensure we are taking the right steps to get there. The balance between heart and brain is especially important in situations that require major life decisions. Whether it's choosing a career path, making a financial investment, or deciding whether to move to a new place, these decisions often come with a lot of emotion and uncertainty. It's easy to get caught up in how we feel about a situation, but it's equally important to think through the practical aspects of our choices. When we're too emotionally invested, we can overlook critical factors that should influence our decision. On the flip side, when we focus solely on the practical side and ignore our emotions, we may end up making choices that don't feel right or fulfilling. In these cases, finding the balance between the heart and brain becomes essential. Moreover, balancing both the heart and brain allows us to maintain emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and manage our emotions, while also understanding and influencing the emotions of others. It requires both self-awareness and empathy, qualities that are nurtured when we allow both heart and brain to guide us. The heart gives us empathy and the ability to connect with others on a deeper level, while the brain helps us understand how to respond to those emotions in a way that is constructive and thoughtful. By balancing both, we are not only making better decisions for ourselves, but also fostering healthier relationships with others. The relationship between heart and brain is not about one being more important than the other. It's about creating synergy between the two. When we balance passion and reason, emotion and logic, we can approach life's challenges with clarity and confidence. This balance allows us to make decisions that are both emotionally satisfying and logically sound, leading to a deeper sense of fulfillment and success in both our personal and professional lives. By respecting and listening to both our heart and brain, we empower ourselves to navigate life with wisdom, purpose, and emotional well-being.